As I'm going through the aisle there at Blockbuster, I'm in the Nintendo 64 section, and I'm flipping through the games, and I'm checking out what's new, and there it is, staring me in the face. Clayfighter Sculptor's Cut, it says. Doesn't say 63 1/3, but I do notice on the box that it says Blockbuster exclusive, and that really irked me. That really irked me, guys. And so here's the part of the story that I'm not very proud of.
Come discover the Blockbuster difference.
But first, a word about this video's sponsor, Encore. Growing up in the 90s, my dad was an early adopter of eBay.
He said on eBay, when you get this, you will be bending the cardboard for the first time.
Today, there are so many ways to collect retro games, and I know for sure that Dad would be using the Encore app. Some of you may have already heard about Encore, the new retro games and consoles marketplace that takes the best features from eBay and TikTok and provides an awesome shopping experience. On Encore, real collectors tell you about the games they're selling, and some even show you gameplay in their videos. Lately, I've been doing a lot of Xbox 360 collecting. This is the perfect time to be collecting for this system, which I can't believe turns 20 years old this year. I hear Lost Odyssey is one of the best games on the console, and I never played this one back in the day. Fingers crossed, hoping I win this one. I've also got my eye on this beautiful Castlevania Aria of Sorrow, complete in box. And guys, I'm not worried about any fraudulent sellers. Encore takes trust and safety seriously. All sellers are ID verified. The Encore guarantee protects you when your item comes not as described. So, use my link to download Encore on the iOS and Android app stores to start shopping today. They also have tons of giveaways happening every week, in case you like winning free stuff. Thank you, Encore, for sponsoring this video.
When I first heard about Clayfighter on the Super Nintendo, I was flipping through the pages of EGM magazine, and that's where I first laid eyes on this new Super Nintendo game that was coming out that looked an awful lot like Mortal Kombat. And Mortal Kombat, back in the early 90s, 1993 especially, Mortal Kombat was such an adult game, and it was so controversial that I'm sure Interplay, who developed Clayfighter, the geniuses behind this game probably said to themselves, well, if, parents are not going to buy Mortal Kombat for their kids, let's cater to an all ages group and capitalize on Mortal Kombat's popularity with a parody of Mortal Kombat that also kind of doubled as an original game. Using stop motion animation and clay sculptures for their fighter models, Clayfighter, really on paper, is pretty genius when you think about it. The game had so much buzz. Guys, really, if I could put you back in a time and place, 1993, going into the holiday season of Christmas 1993, this game, I'm sure, made it onto many Christmas lists because the magazines were hyping it up. So this was a game that was critically acclaimed, and really that's where I became a Clayfighter fan. I got Clayfighter for Christmas of 1993. It was one of the first games I opened that Christmas in front of my family and my cousins.
Hey, want to know where to get the hottest video games for Christmas? Ask an expert. He'll say Blockbuster.
Blockbuster has the latest video games from Interplay. Bad Mr. Frosty ices his enemies in Clayfighter, or jam on the competition in Rock and Roll Racing. Clayfighter and Rock and Roll Racing. Games sold separately, hardware not included.
enjoying that fireplace, Meg?
Clayfighter would end up turning into sort of a Christmas tradition there for a while, as I got Clayfighter 63 and a third, the third game in the series, released on Nintendo 64 around holiday season 1997. I got it for Christmas that year. In fact, it was the game I opened on Christmas Eve. I had a tradition in my family, like so many people do. I can open up one game on Christmas Eve, and I opened up Clayfighter 63 and a third from my Aunt Michelle and my Uncle Mike and my cousins Manny and Mikey.
We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you... Hey, how'd that dog get in here? Well, Chris is over with his cousin Timmy. You're from Florida? Whoa, look out. He's got a suntan and everything. He's a beach boy. And we're about to open Tyler's one and only Christmas present for Christmas Eve, and that is from
my Aunt Michelle, Uncle Mike, and my cousins Manny and Mike.
Alright, well, 1 minute, and we're going to let him do that. Hold on. Alright, here we go. Tyler's going to open it.
Yeah.
Tyler, what do you think it is?
I think it's Bomberman 64. I think it's a Nintendo 64.
No, it's an old Super NES.
Can I open it?
Yeah, good.
Oh, I heard the crash. Clayfighter! 63 and a half.
Clayfighter for Super NES?
Yeah, no, Nintendo 64.
Well, what do you say?
Thank you.
Well, that's your one present for Christmas Eve, so I guess I know what you guys are going to be doing.
The Nintendo 64 was no stranger to fighting games. Killer Instinct Gold, Mortal Kombat Trilogy, games like Dark Rift and War Gods. Nintendo 64 had a strong lineup of fighting games.
And Killer Instinct Gold, which is better than the arcade, 3D background. Man, look at all these incredible games. Mortal Kombat Trilogy, which is good.
Clayfighter 63 and a third, it fit in nicely into that lineup. My friend Chris was over, and he was witness to me getting the game that night, so it was a no-brainer. We were going to play this two-player game together that night. Perfect timing, really.
Well, that's your one present for Christmas Eve, so I guess I know what you guys are going to be doing.
Yep. And Nintendo 64.
But as we played Clayfighter 63 and a third, it became quite clear to us, even that evening, that the game was just only average.
Not bad, huh?
It stinks. Not just joking. Not joking.
How appropriate that the stage that we're playing, where my dad is capturing this footage, is on one giant toilet bowl.
That's, you know what that is.
That's a toilet bowl?
It was almost as if the game was trying to tell us it wasn't that good. Me, ever the optimist, I liked the game, I enjoyed playing it, but there definitely felt like there was something missing. There definitely felt like there was just an unfinished game that we were playing. There weren't as many characters as the previous game in the series, Clayfighter 2, which came out on the Super Nintendo. And overall, it just felt kind of unpolished. You know, the original Clayfighter game had a theme song in the opening that was actually sung to you. And like, that was amazing on the Super Nintendo to hear a song with vocals coming out of your cartridge. And for the Nintendo 64 to not have something like that, it was kind of a letdown, honestly. And so there were various things about the game that just felt unfinished. You know, this took the gameplay from the other Clayfighter games that had come out, and it just added a 3D component to it. It was sort of a 2.5D fighting game with, you know, the same pre-rendered clay model fighters, but now they're on top of a 3D background, given the Nintendo 64's capabilities. And overall, the game was pretty much a letdown, and I quickly forgot about it and stopped playing it not long after that Christmas 1997.
Oh, cool, I know a move now. How do you do that? You go like this, look at this. You better.
It's Maggie, the Christmas dog.
Fast forward to the new year, 1998.
That's right, so it's 1998.
Dad and I are perusing our local Blockbuster video store. Oh my gosh, I have so much nostalgia for Blockbuster Video.
Ordinary video stores don't even come close to Blockbuster Video. You've just got to see it to know what we mean.
Wow! Wow! Wow!
While I was there at Blockbuster one day, we were making a routine stop. Honestly, back in those days, Dad and I, we would go to Blockbuster Video, but we didn't rent a whole lot of movies. It was mainly to rent video games. And, Dad and I, for as many games as Dad and I owned and bought, we didn't just buy every game. We rented games and we tried them out before we bought them. We had a regular routine of doing this. I can name tons and tons of games that I rented, but the most infamous game of all the games I ever rented was Clayfighter Sculptor's Cut. Now you might be asking yourself, what is Clayfighter Sculptor's Cut? Clayfighter Sculptor's Cut was basically a giant slap in the face to anybody who bought Clayfighter 63 1/3 on the Nintendo 64. Sculptor's Cut was basically a director's cut of Clayfighter 63 1/3, or in my eyes, it was the game we should have gotten. As I'm going through the aisle there at Blockbuster, I'm in the Nintendo 64 section and I'm flipping through the games and I'm checking out what's new. And, back then you just kind of flip through and sometimes there'd just be something brand new that just was there that wasn't there a week ago. These were still days that were in the infancy of the internet, so we really didn't have a great idea about when games were coming out. And as I'm going through the games, I'm seeing games like GoldenEye, your typical stuff, Diddy Kong Racing, classics, Nintendo 64, a couple of hidden gems in there, Snowboard Kids. And then I finally get to it. And to my eyes, it looks like Clayfighter 63 1/3. I almost skip over the game. And I had to do like a double take. I remember I flipped through and I passed it up. And then I thought, wait, that looked different. Because the box art is very much the same, but different. So I do a double take and I flip back to it. And there it is, staring me in the face. Clayfighter, and I have to squint to read. Clayfighter Sculptor's Cut, it says. Doesn't say 63 1/3. And I say to myself, oh my gosh, this is this what I think it is? At the time, mind you, I'm 12 years old, but I'm pretty savvy when it comes to video game stuff. And I knew right then and there, this was like a director's cut. So I hold it in my hand, I'm holding the box art, in the other hand I'm looking at the back, and I'm seeing that this has extra characters, new levels. It's promoting a better version of Clayfighter 63 1/3. And so I'm just like, we gotta get this, we gotta rent it. But I do notice on the box, at the same time that I'm taking all of this in, I recognize that it says right there on the front, Blockbuster exclusive. I knew right then and there that meant this was the only way I was going to be able to play this thing. And so I couldn't go to the store and buy it. It was only going to be available to rent. I go up to Dad, I tell him about it. He's excited. He's like, oh yeah, cool, let's get it. Let's rent it. So we rented the game. And I bring it home. And guys, I pop it into my Nintendo 64, and the first thing that hits me is the opening theme song.
A meteor crash one fateful day turned muddled creatures into clay, with heroes bent on doing right and twisted foes up for the fight. Clayfighter! 1-to-1 they set the stage. Clayfighter! Pounding clay is all the rage.
This was everything I wanted out of the original version of the game, Clayfighter 63 1/3. I heard that opening theme song and I immediately was like, I wanted a song like this. The original Clayfighter had a theme song, and I always wondered, why does this new brand new Nintendo 64 latest incarnation of Clayfighter not have a theme song?
Clayfighter, blow by blow, no turning back. Clayfighter, living my
And there it was. It's like they knew. They knew it should have. They knew that was missing, and they added a really fun opening theme song like the original game had. Just the game itself played better too. There was something about it. It's like they tightened it up, and it just played better. It felt more vibrant. There was something about it. It just felt more colorful, more vibrant on the screen. The new characters, the new levels. It's almost like they had more time to work on the game, and this was what it should have been all along.
So long, sucker!
Now, here's the part of the story that I'm not very proud of. At one point, near the end of my rental time period with this game, it started to really grate on me that I couldn't own this game. I wasn't going to be able to own the better version of Clayfighter 63 1/3. I felt kind of duped. I felt kind of burned. You know, here was this game I got for Christmas the previous year, and it was just okay. It was average, but it didn't live up to expectations. And it's like the company knew that, so they put out a new version of it, but then they said, you can't own this. It was almost like laughing. It's like they were laughing at us the consumer. Sorry, Blockbuster exclusive. And that really irked me. That really irked me, guys. And so this is what happened. And this is probably the most scandalous thing I ever did. I'm not proud of this. I had this brilliant idea. At least I thought it was brilliant. I said to myself, why don't I just return Clayfighter 63 1/3? The cover art looks so similar. They're not going to notice the difference, right? Oh my gosh, so devious. Tyler, what's wrong with you, young Tyler? I do get it. I understand that as a consumer and a fan of the game, I felt burned. I felt like, you know, this is what it should have been, and I'm owed this. I'm owed this. We have the game. Why can't it be this game? Why can't it be this version? It's supposed to be this. And so I just made up my mind that I was going to do it. I was going to pull the old switcheroo on Blockbuster.
Come discover the Blockbuster difference.
Now, some of you might be asking or wondering, did you tell your dad that you were going to do this? And I honestly can't even remember. I can't remember whether or not I told him I was going to do this, but I did it.
What do you think this is?
My dad drove me to Blockbuster. It was at night. And I remember at night, Blockbuster would be closed, but they would have that little opening and that little slot that you could slip in the movie or the video game that you were returning, the overnight return slot. And I thought, oh, under the cover of darkness at night, I'll be okay to do this. Nobody will see what I'm about to do. And I'm about to pull a fast one on Blockbuster. Instead of putting the Clayfighter Sculptor's cut version of the game in the Blockbuster case, I put my original from Christmas 97. I put my Clayfighter 63 1/3 version of the game, the older version of the game, I put it in the Blockbuster case. And Dad pulled the vehicle up to the Blockbuster, and I just got out of the car, and I was nervous. I was like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? I was kind of having second thoughts even as I'm walking up to that return slot. And I open up slowly. I open up the return slot, and I've got the Blockbuster case with the older game in it. And I'm like, am I really going to do this? And I've got it like halfway in, and it's like teetering back and forth. And finally, I just drop it. I shut the slot, and I run back to the car. Immediately, I feel like, oh my gosh, am I going to get in trouble? Are the cops coming? Are they Blockbuster going to arrest me? You know, my 12-year-old self. immediately all these bells are going off in my head, and I'm kind of scared about what I just did. I go back to the car and I go home, and at home waiting for me was Clayfighter Sculptor's cut. I had it. It was mine. And in the coming days and weeks and months, I really worried whether or not I was going to get in trouble for this. I didn't know if my dad was going to get some sort of letter in the mail. I didn't, Blockbuster used to be crazy sometimes with their late fees and stuff like that. And who knows what they would do in this situation, but nothing came of it. My gosh, 1998, so many years ago. It was wrong, and I don't recommend anybody doing it. Over time, I was thrilled to have this exclusive Blockbuster Nintendo 64 game. It felt very special to me. Even back then, it was like, oh, this is, not many people have this, and not many people have a way of getting this. I wasn't really thinking in terms of rarity back then, especially with a current gen game. But oh my gosh, guys, this game, I had no idea that this version of the game, this Blockbuster exclusive, was going to become the rarest, not just a rare, but the rarest game in the Nintendo 64 library that was commercially released. And for years and years and years, this game sat in my collection as a treasure that was obtained by not the most legit ways. But I also thought to myself, how is anybody supposed to get this? How is anybody supposed to actually own this thing if they don't do it the way I did it? I guess I could have waited for it to go on sale, but I didn't want to wait. And my impatience led me to doing something that I was not proud of. Was it worth it? No, absolutely not. It was not worth nearly getting myself arrested as a juvenile back in the day for what was essentially stealing. But I will tell you, I got this really crazy, wild story out of it, and for that, I'm grateful. My friend Brian, he used to say to me, Tyler, you're the reason Blockbuster went out of business. It's because of you and you pulling the old switcheroo on Blockbuster with the Clayfighter Sculptor's cut. And that's pretty funny to think about, but if it was true, I'm sorry. I'm sure that most of you who own this game today probably bought it at a video game convention, or maybe you got it when it went on sale eventually. But man, it is so rare, and I can't believe there are some people, I've seen this game at video game conventions with the box. And I'm like, how did you, because the box exists. They sent this game to Blockbuster with the original box. But most of the time, that box was destroyed by Blockbuster. So many copies of this game got destroyed. All things said and done, this may have been the rarest video game I ever owned in my life. If this is your first time to the channel, do consider subscribing. I love talking about my game crazy family and all of the amazing adventures we had with video games, so many of which were caught on tape. Thank you, and I'll catch you next time.